Hi guys, thank you for joining my live stream tonight. Please let me know if you see me, if you hear me, and I apologize again for changing the link the last minute. I'm still kind of new to all this YouTube stuff. Technically, because I'm about writing texts, saying something on camera, but I'm not very good with technical stuff, unfortunately, yet. But I'm trying to do my best. Yes, thank you for texting. Can see and hear you well. Thank you so much. So. My name is Ksenia Turkova, and for those who don't know me yet and maybe just joined my channel and just joined that live stream, I will say a couple of words about myself. I'm a journalist. I'm originally from Russia. I moved to Ukraine from Russia in 2013. In Russia, I worked for several TV channels, private TV channels, independent TV channels, as a news presenter and as a reporter. Then I moved to Ukraine, where I worked for the radio, and I was a radio host, and also I worked as an executive producer and also a host for one of the Ukrainian TV channels. And then I moved to US. So I started my career more than 20 years ago, and that's why I decided to do this live stream tonight, because when I was very young, you can guess it was 20 something years ago. So this event that we are going to talk about tonight happened 20 years ago, and I started my career 22 years ago. So I was very young, and it just happened that I covered tragedies, and as actually I think any journalist who starts their career, and it was very difficult period of time for me, because I told you in my first live stream that I just started working for one TV channel, the best news channel in Russia at that time in 90s, NTV. And then it was taken over by the state oil company, Gazprom, and that was a big drama, big tragedy for a lot of journalists from that channel. And why I'm telling you all this again, because it's connected to what I'm going to talk about tonight. So we're going to talk about what happened in Moscow 20 years ago during the Moscow theater hostage crisis. So in 2002, I was a news presenter and a reporter for TVS in Russian channel. I still have, this microphone cube on my shelf. I brought it to Ukraine first, and then I brought it to US. I still have my press card from TVS. You see, you can see it here. I look very young. So I worked for that TVS channel, and I will tell you a little bit of, I will give you a little, some information about this channel because it's important, and you will see why. So I was very young, and I still believed in freedom of speech in Russia at that time. Although I understand actually everything about Putin already, and I understood who Putin was, because again I witnessed what happened to NTV. And about I knew about submarine already because I was on NTV channel while we were covering submarine. So at that time, early 2000s, I didn't have any illusions already about Mr. Putin and who he was. In 2022, as I said already, I worked for the TVS channel. So I will give you the timeline. When the state oil company Gazprom took over NTV, and they installed a new management there, and the majority of the team, the biggest part of the team left the channel, including me, but I was the youngest part of the team, the newest one. We left the channel, and we started a new channel, a new project on one of the existing frequencies on the on TV, on Russian TV. It was TV6. So we started a new page, but then in half a year, that channel was taken off air. It was shut down for again for the censorship reasons. There was some different pretexts, but everybody understood what was going on. But we still had some hopes and beliefs, and we wanted to keep trying. So the same team, after NTV was taken over by Gazprom, after TV6 was shut down, we still wanted to keep trying, and we decided to try to start a new channel. So when they pulled TV6 off the air, the frequency was temporarily filled with programming from NTV plus sports, some sport TV channel, by the way, belong to Gazprom as well. And they announced the auction for this frequency, for TV6's old frequency. It took place in March of 2002. And the auction was won by Media Socium Partnership. And what was that partnership? So a bunch of Russian oligarchs, including very famous oligarchs like Deripaska, Mamut, and so on, they united to save this media team, to save our team, and they put their money into this channel. There were a lot of oligarchs, and one of the TVS and old NTV stars, Svetlana Sorokina, said it was like oligarch kolkhoz, like in Soviet Union, kolkhoz, like a collective, collective money. So a lot of oligarchs put their money into it, including very famous ones, and including oligarchs who were like close to Putin, to the administration as well. And they won this frequency for us, for our team. And of course, you can guess that probably, actually, obviously, some negotiations with Kremlin, with the administration, were behind the scenes. So Kremlin allowed those oligarchs to win this frequency, to win this contest auction. That's how we got our channel back, but we renamed it and we launched it again. And it was on the one hand, it was great because I had great time, 1 year, a great 1 year on this channel. And it was one of the happiest time in my career. But on the other hand, we understood that it's like negotiating with evil, you just can't delay your end by negotiating with someone like Putin. It was not said straight that yes, there were some negotiations, but everybody understood so that some negotiations took place behind the scenes. Otherwise, those oligarchs won't agree to put their money into this channel. And so that's how we got our broadcasting license, and that's how we got on air. And it was in March, so half a year before the tragic event. And why am I telling you all this? Because how TVS was covering this event and what was going on also behind the scenes, and I will tell you that, I will tell you some stories, shows us what was happening 20 years ago already with Russian media. And TVS at that time was called the last independent channel in Russia. And when it was shut down, in the United States, there were articles in American media, and they called TVS the last independent TV channel in Russia. And so I will tell you what was going on behind the scenes while we were covering that crisis, and why I think that it probably was a mistake to try to negotiate with the Kremlin and with the administration, because when you try to talk to negotiate with someone like Putin, you just need to understand that you will always lose. You can't win. You can tell to yourself, like, or maybe some kind of compromise and we can survive, and we can still work as honest journalists, and we can do our job. Yes, for a certain amount of time you can do, but then something like this hostage crisis happens, and you will see that you can't work like a free journalist anymore. And that's actually what happened. So how it all started, I was a morning host, so every day I woke up at 2 3 in the morning, and so I went to bed really early, like at 8 maybe, to wake up at 2 or 3, and then I went to work, and I lived far. I lived in, even not in Moscow, I lived in the Moscow region. It's like 1 hour drive at night without traffic. So I woke up, I went to work, I did my usual morning news. Then I went back home. And in the evening, I was about to go to bed. And I was late that day. I do remember, because that happened in the theater. It happened pretty late. It was about 9 p.m. So I was about to go to bed, and then I started getting messages from my colleagues and from my boss. My boss called me and said, we need all go to the studio, and we need all cover what was going on. And I just started realizing what actually happened. And that's an interesting thing. A week or two before, I went to that theater to see that particular musical, because it was a new musical, and everybody wanted to watch it. It was a very interesting, it was a great performance, actually. So a couple of weeks before that, I went to the same performance with my boyfriend and with my friend and her husband. And we really enjoyed it. It's a musical staged by a very, very popular, one of the cult Soviet books. It's an adventure novel called Two Captains. There is a movie as well. And everybody likes it. It's about adventures, about friendship, about love. A very interesting plot. So it's a novel written by Soviet author Veniamin Kaverin between 1938 and 1944. And it's his best-known work, and is considered one of the most popular works of Soviet literature in general. It won the USSR State Prize in 1946. It was reissued 42 times in 25 years, and so on. So it's a very, very popular book. And the novel tells the story of a Russian young man, Alexander Grigoriev. He grows up through Tsarist Russia, to the October Revolution, to World War II. At the center of the story is Grigoriev's search for the lost Arctic expedition of Captain Ivan Tatarinov and the discovery of Severnaya Zemlya. And the motto of the main hero was to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield, or not to surrender. You can translate it both ways. In Russian, it sounds like бороться, искать, найти и не сдаваться. And everybody likes this motto because it's about bravery. It's about keep trying. By the way, that's what we were doing with our channel. Our motto was to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield, to not to surrender, because we were keep trying, but we failed. unfortunately. And in this particular musical, in this performance, famous actors were playing. They were singing beautiful songs. And by the way, the music, the songs were written by two popular musicians, Ivashchenko and Vasiliev, their last names are. And by the way, recently, the recording of one of their concerts from the last year in Moscow went viral. It was maybe a couple of weeks ago. It went viral in Russian social media because their songs sound very anti-dictatorship. And if you listen to this concert now, you can think, oh wow, how can they sing it, why are they not banned in Russia, and so on. But the thing is, the concert was before the war, and they're really good musicians, so they created that musical, and a lot of actors from that musical of course were among the hostages. And so I could have been there because I visited it a couple of weeks ago, and when when I read the news, when my colleagues called me, when I realized what happened, I also realized that I read about that a little later. One of my schoolmates from the Moscow University was there, a girl, and she was not involved into the performance. She is not an actress, but at the same building, in the same building, they had some dance dance classes, and she was doing Irish dance classes, and she was also stuck there when they took hostages, and so she was also among all those people. Among all those people in this theater, all 3 days. And she's alive, everything is fine with her. So I went to work, and after that I actually never got home. 3 days I was at work, and sometimes I went to my boyfriend's place because he lived closer to work than I did. And but basically we all lived at work all those 3 days, and we were taking turns. We had Our channel had a lot of hosts. We had several morning hosts, we had several afternoon hosts and evening. And so we were just taking turns. For example, I'm on air for 3 hours. I think it was 3 hours. So I'm on air 3 hours. Then my colleague is on air 3 hours. Then another one, and it's like nonstop. And you can imagine, if you are 22, you haven't seen much in your life, and you see what is going on, and you need to talk about that, and you need to talk to people who are telling you something about that and how they're trying to help. You know, there were a lot of people who were trying to negotiate with terrorists, and they were trying to help. So when you're covering things like that, and when you are on air several hours in a row, it's very hard psychologically, very, very hard. And I definitely was traumatized by that experience. But although at the same time, I had a lot of useful experience as a journalist, of course. So we were like taking turns. At the same time, one of our cameramen with a journalist, they so the locals who live near the theater, they let them into the apartment, and they stayed in that apartment also for 3 days, because people just let them in, and they let them stay there. They stayed there, and they were filming through the window what was going on, because we understood that they could, Russian special forces, they could start storming any time, any moment, and the situation could change any moment. So they also almost didn't sleep. They were just looking through that window with camera and trying to film everything what was going on. And so that was, as I said, like for 3 days. And on the third day, and all this time, you know, I told you it was very difficult for me emotionally, psychologically, and all this time I was like, as everybody, not only me, of course, I was praying, I was thinking, I hope they will be all saved, rescued. And I had so much hope. And I remember that third day, I was absolutely exhausted already. I came to work. It was early morning, because you remember that the storm was early in the morning, 6, 7 a.m. So I came to work like at 4, 5. I wasn't there, and at some point I understood, because I had my computer there. I had also that ear, and my editors and producers were telling me something, and also I was scrolling the agencies, different agencies like Rater and EP and Russian agencies, Interfax and TASS and stuff. And so I was scrolling, because I was resetting them over and over, because I was waiting for some new information, and I was afraid of like missing it. And then I saw that message with big capital letters, because when you see the urgent message on that agency thread, it's very often that it's written with the capital letters. And I remember that message appeared on the screen, and I was on air at that time. And that message said, I think it was the message from the Ministry of Defense, so it was some official message. And it was only like one line, that all the hostages are saved, that they stormed the building, hostages are saved, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it was so like positive, and I do remember that feeling. I was like flooded with happiness. I was like, finally, they saved all people. And so I, at that time, I needed to. There was no more information. We had only this small line, so I read it aloud, and then I went off air, and my colleagues changed me, so we were taking turns again. And so I went to the hallway, and I went to the to that one of the control rooms, and I was standing there, feeling that big relief that people are saved. I'm sorry. But then I saw those videos. We had TV sets there in the control rooms, and we used at that time the big Betacam cassettes, and so one of my colleagues were playing one of those cassettes, and I saw on the screen how the people, the rescuers began carrying the bodies of hostages out of the building, and the bodies were laid in rows outside the building on the pavement, and at the main entrance to the theater center. And I realized that probably a lot of those people are dead, and I'm so sorry. And a lot of journalists at that time were witnessing the same thing. For example, the Guardian correspondent wrote that he saw the bodies, and there were no wounds, or there were no signs of bleeding, but their faces were waxy, white, and drawn, their eyes open and blank. It was a quote. So the entire space very soon was filled with bodies, probably of the dead people, or with the bodies of unconscious people. And that was the moment I realized that something is wrong. So that message I just read, it's probably maybe maybe they didn't know. I was so naive. So maybe they didn't know yet. But then one of our bosses said we couldn't show that. We couldn't show what we saw. We couldn't show what the agencies were broadcasting, like sending us Reuters and AP, international agencies, and what was our cameraman sending to us. So he said, like, we shouldn't show that. And I realized that he probably was in touch with the administration, with Kremlin, and it was already happening, like some contacts, and they were trying to control the content. They were trying to control what we show, because their main narrative was that that was a brilliant operation. If you look at the comments of the officials at that time, Putin's comments and different deputies and ministers and mayor, Moscow Mayor Lushkov, they were all using that word, brilliant. The operation was brilliant. Although a lot of people died, 130 people, they were saying the operation was brilliant, and they wanted media to say the same thing. So that boss who said we shouldn't show it, he went to the control room from where the broadcasting was going, and he pressed the button, and he said into my colleague's ear, say that the operation was brilliant. And then my colleague, I don't remember if he said that or not, or if he pretended he didn't hear that, but I was so shocked by the fact that he pressed the button and he said in his ear, like, you should say that operation was good. And then my colleague finished the news slot, and we had a small meeting, like, in the hallway, just to decide what to do, because we were trying to decide who is going to host the main morning news piece at 9 o'clock, I think, 9 o'clock. And that boss said, I want Ksenia to do it. And because he trusted me, and he thought that I was a very promising TV host, that I had a big future. He told me that. So probably that's why he decided, he picked me. And I didn't expect it, because I didn't look reliable at all. I mean, censorship wise. And I said, I'm sorry, but I think I can't. In front of other bosses and all my colleagues, I said, I'm sorry, I think I can't. And he asked why, and I said, I'm too stressed. I'm afraid of getting emotional. I'm too stressed, and I can't say what you need me to say. And I gave him that look, so he understood what was going on. And again, I was so young. I was just in the beginning of my career. And he said, okay. He didn't. So we didn't have any argument about that. He said, okay, whoever else. And they were taking turns again. And I was not on air the day anymore at all. So I just refused to go on air. But after that, some other hosts didn't talk to me. They say, like, they got offended, and they say I was trying to show that I'm better than they are. And I said, I didn't want to show anything. It was my decision. I don't want to sit in the studio, and I don't want to be told in my ear what to say. But a couple of people came to me and whispered in my ear, like literally, that I was right. But that is actually not the end of the story. The next day, or a couple of days after, that boss called me again and to talk one-to-one. And he said he wanted to explain why he did this, because he understood the reason I didn't want to go in there. And he wanted to explain. He said it was so difficult for him, for us, to get that broadcast license I told you about in the very beginning, he said, it's my license. I know how I got it. So I don't want to lose it. And if we do things like what you wanted to do, and some other people, if we show everything what we want to show, what we think we should show, we can lose our license. That's what he said to me. And he said, so we need to agree to some compromise. And you understand that that kind of conversation lets you know that this is beginning of the end, because then they want more, then they want more. It's not a little compromise. So it starts maybe with a little compromise, but then it goes more and more, farther and farther and farther, and we know how it can end. And it happened to us. It happened to our channel because it was taken off air, and it was shut down. And after that, a lot of people lost their jobs. Some of them, very talented journalists, they just got lost, and they were never on TV after that. Some of them became propagandists, unfortunately. Some of them are still trying to find some places to work honestly, and to do their job. Some of them changed their jobs. So that was the moment why I decided to tell you all this story, because that was the moment when I realized that probably there is no future for the free media, for the independent media in Russia. Because when something like that happens, it's very important to tell the truth. It's very important. And after that, our channel was already shut down, but we saw what was going on after that. We remember Beslan, when they were lying on the state TV channels. They were lying about the amount of hostages, and the terrorists got pissed because of that, and they started killing people. And after that, one tragedy after another, and we saw the same scenario. They say that that was a brilliant operation, that everything went well, but we see that people died, people are suffering, or something else happened. So the reality contradicts what they say. And also, each story, one after another, shows us the price of human life in Russia. And also, I will tell you a couple of words about NTV channel that I worked for in the very beginning. I told you it was actually, I came from NTV with all the team to TV6 and then to TVS. NTV, after it was overtaken by Gazprom, they were still trying. They understood what happened. Some people decided to stay, and there were still some very good journalists, by the way, but they made their choice. And they were thinking that they still could work. They made the same mistake. So they were trying to negotiate with those new managers, and they were thinking that okay, they changed the management of the channel, but probably they won't kill us as a channel. They will still let us work with a little bit here and there. We should maybe be less critical or something like that. So they still believed they could work until Nord-Ost happened. Because NTV, when Nord-Ost happened, NTV was always known by their high professional news. And that instinct, that news instinct, woke up when Nord-Ost happened. And they just couldn't work poor in that situation. They decided that they need to do their job. They need to do their best. And so they recorded an interview with Mofsar Barayev, in which he sent a message to the Russian government, the head of those people who took the theater. And he said, we have nothing to lose. We have already covered 2,000 kilometers by coming here. There is no way back. We have come to die. Our motto is freedom and paradise. We already have freedom and we've come to Moscow. Now we want to be in paradise. So they recorded an interview. They got into the theater. They recorded an interviews with the hostages. But then when they started to storm the building, they were showing it on air, what was going on. So the things we didn't show, even recorded, so we didn't show those bodies. I mean, we showed them somehow after that. But at that time, I was just talking about, we didn't show even pre-recorded videos. Our bosses were decided maybe we shouldn't show. On NTV, they showed it on air in live. And they say, of course, we can't say for sure because we were not standing by Putin and we didn't see his face expression and stuff. But they say that Putin was so pissed off that right after that, he put a lot of restrictions on media and he changed the management again. The head of NTV was fired. And after that, it just went down. So after that situation, they understood that it's difficult to work like they worked before, and that they had probably some illusions about, although they were overtaken by the state company, they probably could still have some freedom. So that was the turning point, and that's why it was important for me to tell you that story. So let me read some of your messages. You are very brave. I'm kind of brave, yes, I think. But sometimes I don't see it as a bravery. I think I'm a brave person in general, maybe. But when I do stuff like that, I just can't do something else. I don't feel I have a choice. I just can't. I couldn't at that moment. I couldn't go sit in the chair, go in there, and tell what they're telling me in the ear. Or probably I could have done it and say on air that you know what, they're telling in my ear now that the operation was brilliant. I didn't. I should have guessed. I should have guessed to do that. I didn't have that idea at that time. But it was just only way for me to behave, and I said I couldn't do it. Did you ever report on a story that you were pretty sure was false? Like what do you mean, Andy? I don't understand you well. Like I reported and then it turned out to be false, like crucified boy or something. No, if it's something like that, I don't remember that. Hello from San Francisco. I think your reporting is fantastic, and I think I can't read it now. For your openness, thank you. Thanks for your work. Okay, thank you so much. Just tell me if you have any questions, and I will tell you a little more about that period of time. It was, as I said, probably one of the happiest time in my career. I still remember it, and I had a lot of recurring dreams about TVS and how we finally will get together and create a new channel and start it and free Russia and some new Russia. Now I understand that it's impossible. Maybe in some new life, or my children or my grandchildren will do it if they become journalists. But I don't think it's possible. In the next future, it will be very difficult. I think I was following the Nord-Ost hostage situation via CDF in Germany, and it was happening. That Andy clarified what he meant. At that time you were reporting, you doubted the facts or knew them to be wrong. That's what I meant. Mm, Probably I had something like that, but it's hard to recall now. I need to think about it. Probably I had something like that because I often doubt in what I read, and that I think it's normal. Mm, I do not think Ukraine will ever give up, nor should they. Do you think that Putin will be taken down from within Russia? I'm not a political expert, so it's hard for me to say and to predict. And as you know, it's very difficult in general to predict what will happen with Putin. The moods in Russia and the society is very passive, and for obvious reasons. A lot of people left. Some opposition leaders, actually, almost all opposition leaders are in prison. Uh, so a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people are poisoned by propaganda, and so I don't see any possibility to start the mass protests in Russia. So if Putin will be taken down, uh, he will be taken down with something else, not because of the mass protests. Mm, do you have any feelings about current propagandists who know that what they are saying is wrong, but don't want to rock the boat? That's a great question, Toby. And I know a lot of propagandists personally. And by the way, I mentioned in the beginning that I watched that performance, that musical, with my boyfriend at that time, and he became a propagandist. And I now I can't even imagine like how I can talk to him. And I knew a lot of people who became propagandists. That Vladimir Solovyov, you probably know, he is one of the main propagandists in Russia. He's like the face of Russian propaganda. I know him personally, and we worked at the same channel. He worked for TV6 and TVS, and he was very democratic and liberal, and he was all for freedom of speech and democracy and so on. And now we see what he's saying on air. Hate speech, propaganda, and just absolutely unacceptable things. He became a symbol of Russian propaganda. Uh, I don't have any particular feelings about them, but sometimes uh, I think about. I don't think about like the main figures like Dmitry Kiselyov, Vladimir Solovyov, but I think about those young journalists who work for state TV channels in Russia in news, and who are telling the news every day, and who are the hosts, for example. Mm, and I don't understand just, physically how their mouth can say it. I don't understand some because I'm very interested in language, and I think language is very important, and how we word things it's very important. So sometimes I just don't understand how physically you can say that, and I'm very curious. I would like to talk to those people, but almost all of them, they don't want to talk about that. Mm, there are. There are some people who truly believe in what they're saying, and there are a lot of people who are doing that just for money, and as they say on Russian TV, for mortgage, unfortunately. What is your impression? Uh, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to comment on some political questions, because I'm not a political analyst. So I will say something about what I really know. Um, the little moments and little actions sometimes add up to the most important things. That's true. Thank you for your answer. This may be a little bit beyond the scope of the stream, but what do you think of the United Nations? Do you feel like it's outdated? I know there is a narrative like that it's outdated, that they can't decide anything, and they have a very small influence of the events, and stuff like that. And Vladimir Zelensky said something about that. But I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Is it outdated or not? Maybe if it's existed, it's not outdated. But the thing is that people need to come to understanding that that we should stop just try to negotiate with Putin and with people from Russia, because sometimes all those big meetings, and they talk very seriously with with the representatives of Russia, and very often it looks so absurd. Why are they talking to them, seeing what they're doing? And sometimes there is an impression that they're taking seriously their narratives in those international organizations, I mean, like UN. And that's my concern. So sometimes when I see it, especially as a linguist, they speak two different languages, and people from the Western world, they're sitting with those serious faces, and I have an impression they take it seriously what Russian representatives are saying. Maybe we should do something about that. That's my concern. Large organizations like UN are slow by design, but better to have them than not to. I agree with that. I think I missed some questions. Current propagandists, that was a very good question. How Toby is asking about the level of responsibility, or the level of guilt, if you will, of an average Russian who could leave if they chose to, but they decide not to. Toby, you mean leave the country, but they decided to stay? There are very different people who stayed. A lot of people are staying just because they have old parents, sick parents. They need to take care of them. They have no money. They are afraid of leaving the country and going somewhere. And I can't blame them. It's a very difficult decision. Some of them, they still have some hopes. I know those people. They think, how can I leave if I have, like, my students, for example? I feel responsible for my students. If I leave, some propagandists will come and they will teach them. Although it's happening already, but people have that motivation. So I wouldn't judge those people at all. Sometimes it's not their choice, and I know a lot of my friends who are in that position, like, they don't have money, they have old parents and stuff like that. They get very, very hurt when they hear that people are judging them, like, why don't you leave? Why don't you go on the street and just make a revolution and put Putin down and kill him? Of course, they can't do it. And it's strange if I'm sitting here in Washington, D.C., and blaming my friends for not going on the streets or not leaving Russia. I just can't do that. It's not appropriate. And so I won't judge those people. Although a lot of people in Russia, of course, they have that responsibility for what is going on. By the way, those people who stay, those people who I just told you about, they feel that responsibility. That's the thing. They feel it, and they say, yes, we feel our responsibility. Although we went to the protest meetings and stuff, we still feel, as Russians, we feel responsibility. But there are a lot of people who don't feel any guilt, any responsibility. They support the regime of, yes, of course. And there are still a lot of it. It's a huge group in Russia, a huge group of people who are saying, "Oh, we're not about politics. We don't think about politics. We are thinking about our family and how to go to the theater and watch a movie, and what kind of new restaurants opened in Moscow, and we just don't want to see that mobilization stuff and war is somewhere is going on." And a lot of people are like that, and I think mm, a big part of responsibility is on them, because they're all this time they were kind of isolated of what was going on. And Ukrainians were never like that. Ukrainians were always very, very much involved into politics. That's why they had their revolutions. They changed the presidents. How many? 6 presidents changed since Putin was the president in Russia. Uh, so they were always very, very active and proactive and involved into politics. In Russia, a lot of people are very passive, and they're trying just not to notice what was going on. Still, how can they do it? I don't know. But still, there are a lot of people who just pretend that nothing is happening. That's I don't understand. I have no idea how they do it. Arestovich made the point that silent internal protest is a viable and appreciated option if those other options, aren't open. There is some silent protests, yes, in Russia. They're trying to protest. I read news every day, and every day in Russian news, I read that someone got arrested for the entire war statement. Someone got fined for the entire war statement. Someone got fired for the same reason. Every day, several news about that. And it's only according to official resources. I mean, according to media, I'm sure a lot of stories we just don't know about. Are there any Western facing Russian YouTubers that you would recommend or recommend against? You mean in English or in Russian or in Ukrainian? Okay, yeah. I think I read almost all of your questions, and I will maybe write in chat a little bit later. Thank you so much for watching this live stream. I hope you knew something new for yourself about what was going on 20 years ago in Moscow and how the journalists were covering that. I think it was a very important turning point. A lot of people don't know that, and a lot of journalists, they didn't even think about it. But for me, it was a real turning point in what was going on with media in Russia after that. I think the largest groundwork to be done is to change mindsets, because some Russians I talk to disagree with what's happening, but still are convinced that whatever replaces Putin, if they rock the boat, is going to be worse. That yes, that there is an opinion like that. Do you have any concerns about the negative impact on the Russian language globally from Putin's propaganda during this war? All the linguists I talked to before the war, because I talked on this topic several times before. So they told me that every time Russia-US relations go bad, there is a spike in the interest to towards Russian language. And now I think the situation is a little bit different, because now it's not about that romantic image of a spy or a KGB agent. There is no that romantic aura anymore. And now people tell me that unfortunately in the official structures there is a spike of interest, because they want to hire people with the knowledge of Russian, because they for cybersecurity reasons and stuff like that. In official structures, yes. But in general, for the people who wanted to learn Russian before, unfortunately, we have this interest is going down. Unfortunately, because now Russia, the words Russia, Russian, Russians are associated with aggression, and this association is very strong. This connotation is very strong, and it will be hard to destroy it. Maybe it will take a lot of years to separate them again. So now there are two different trends in the official structures, in the companies. People who know Russian language will be hired, and there will be certain demand. But at the same time, as a cultural thing, the interest is going down. There will be a lot of interest towards Ukrainian language. I think they know they're wrong, but it's us versus them no matter what. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much for watching my live stream, and see you soon again. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for your comments. Bye.